and welcome to Beyond the Front Page for the fall 2017 semester here at Cayuga Community College. This is a show that is broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as the college's radio station Win 89. I'm Guy Cosentino, your host. Now that election 2017 is over, we are back to our normal schedule of programming. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this show, but tonight we're delighted to have with us in our studio, I should say his studio, Cayuga Community College President Brian DURANT, to give us an update on the college. President DURANT joined the college in August of 2015, and he's had a busy 2 years. He's been on here a couple of times, but we've asked him on again today to give us an update on a couple of items, such as the college's budget, a year-end surplus that he's expecting, recent agreements with Wells College as well as the City of Auburn, and the new baseball program and girls softball, respectively there, as well as talk about some other things that are impacting the college, such as the Excelsior program that was unveiled by the governor, as well as talk maybe a little bit about sports, where Cayuga ended up in soccer, as well as other items he has planned, including where we are with housing. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Guy.
Well, nice to see you. Not that I don't see you every day, since we have offices next to each other, but welcome here. One of the things we want to talk about, though, is enrollment. Your semester is almost half over. First of all, how's the semester going?
The semester's going very well. It's always nice to be in the swing of our academic year, to be able to see the many students we have on both of our campuses in Fulton and here in Auburn that are really kind of thriving and settling into their own, and certainly as we're looking ahead towards almost the end of the first fall semester here, it's a busy time for our students, and we're just doing the best we can to continue to educate and support them. So it's always an exciting time to be able to bring in a new class early in the fall and see them as they get adjusted throughout the fall semester, and ultimately as they're getting settled in here at Cayuga.
So midterms over at this stage?
Midterms are over, and as we talk with our students, we know that it's a nice little kind of sigh of relief for a moment or so, but the work continues, and we kind of look ahead to that real break, which will happen here in middle of December. So
enrollment-wise, where do you stand in enrollment to, how many students do you have here?
Yeah, so last spring when I was here, we talked about that we were on pace to meet our enrollment goals and to be able to do that. We did. We actually exceeded our enrollment projections from last year in 2016 and 17. We served well over 4,000 students last year. In our FTE model, our full-time equivalent, we had...
okay, so stop the bus for a second. So this is where you've tried to explain this.
Right.
So this is a good time to explain it to the public. There's a difference between those who come to this campus who are not full-time, and then this mathematical formula that somebody came up with in a small room in Albany
years ago,
which
decades
is
ago.
Full-time equivalents.
Right.
So tell us the difference between the two and what it really means.
Well, okay. So when we look at our head count, when we look back at fall 2016, the college served about 4,300 students in total. That's individual people, right? And this fall, kind of in contrast, we've served over 4,800 students this fall.
But they're not all full-time.
They're not all full-time. So that's what's really important to me, by the way, before I answer your question. What's important to me is that we're an institution that continues to serve, as many people as possible, because that's what we're here for. And if 4,800 plus students have decided to choose us as a place for higher education, they're enrolled with us, and they're on their way to reach their goals, then that to me is the ultimate success, because we're here for the students, and when we're fortunate enough for them to choose us, that's what matters. We take that number, though, 4,800 students, or 4,300 last year, and from a process standpoint, we create what is a full-time equivalent. And what that really means is we take the total number of credit hours that are registered for. So many of our classes, there were 3 credits. 30 credits is the equivalent of 1 FTE. So when we talk about full-time equivalent, or FTE, we take the total number of credit hours and we divide that by 30, which results in us getting a targeted FTE. What FTE is most important for when it comes to the college operation is actually the budget model, the financial model, if you will.
And how you get reimbursed from the state.
A portion of that gets reimbursed for state aid. A portion of that results in the actual way that we can predict kind of tuition revenues. So it's confusing when we talk about it, because what we really should be talking about is the fact that we are serving nearly 500 more students this fall than we did last fall. When we look at that, though, because we've seen such a dramatic increase in our part-time enrollment, as an example, 5 years ago, the college percentage of full-time versus part-time was nearly 50-50. Last year, we looked at our data and we said over 65% of our student body is actually part-time now, which means we're serving more people, but they're just taking fewer credits.
Why is there that demographic shift?
Well, a significant portion of that is actually related to a number of our investments, if you will, or a number of our initiatives that have seen tremendous growth. Well, we're very fortunate here in our region, both in Cayuga County and Oswego County, to have high school partners that are committed to bring college classes to the high school to be able to serve, really high school students in a way that gives them exposure to different credits, college courses, but ultimately, for many of them, kind of a head start on their college.
Is this the P-TECH program?
Well, the P-TECH program is simple. This is what we call here our K-12 Partnership Initiative.
Okay.
We formally have called it our Cayuga Advantage, which is college classes in the high school, schools, generally taught by approved instructors that are in the high schools that are, in essence, serving us kind of in a dual capacity, both college.
So you have one at Union Springs.
We have them all over the place.
Okay.
Every district is serving them in multiple courses.
So does that mean that those students, whether it's when they're a senior or is it beyond, they'll walk away not only with their high school diploma but also a 2-year degree?
So most of the students I'm talking about are actually accumulating credits. Some of them, many of them, as early as 10th grade or 9th grade for some. They're taking actually college classes that may not necessarily go towards a complete degree when they graduate high school, but they have the chance, many students have a chance to accumulate several credits that will position them well to that when they do go to college, that they'll have a significant head start. The programs you're referencing that are even more unique with Union Springs and with the P-TECH program, those designs have been in place, and I'll speak first about the P-TECH program. We have a great partnership. It's actually a grant opportunity a couple of years ago.
What does P-TECH mean, by the way?
It's partnerships in technical education and kind of an early college model. And what that program is with Auburn and Large City School District is students start as freshmen. They enroll in high school classes and college classes that in essence expose them to manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. And what happens for those students is during that time, during the P-TECH process, they will be accumulating credits towards an associate's degree while they're completing their high school equivalency and while they're on a path towards a post-high school completion here at Cayuga Community College to complete that associate's degree. So what happens in that grant program is when a student is on pace to graduate their typical senior year, they actually will then continue to enroll with Cayuga, complete the rest of their associate's degree, and then at that time be ready for the place of work. But what's really great about that program is it gets young students exposed to the wonders of manufacturing, to the wonderful companies we have in this area, possibilities for careers, and the preparation is happening ongoing. And so they get to a point where really 1 year or maybe 2, right after they would have been traditionally done with high school, they'll be done. And a grant program helps pay for their tuition.
With a degree.
With their degree.
So at Auburn and Union Springs, about how many students per year?
So we're welcoming more than 30 students a year in the Auburn program, and they're cohort based. On the Union Springs model is significantly different. This model is done primarily at the high school itself. What happened there is...
So the Auburn students come here.
Auburn students come here.
Okay.
Exactly. They do some of the coursework at their school as well, but they primarily can come here. The Union Springs model is that the catalog has become so rich with a number of offerings and their commitment with us to be able to offer an array of courses. Students have the opportunity, if they choose to enroll, to have a significant portion of a full associate's degree done by the time that they graduate from high school, which just shows the commitment from the district. It shows our commitment to trying to meet their needs and interests. It's not necessarily a full associate's degree, but they're well on their way.
So the Cayuga Advantage and the P-TECH programs, do those add to your full-time equivalency
Absolutely.
Numbers? So that is that a reason your numbers are up?
That is
the
primary reason where we've seen tremendous growth.
Okay. So back to my original question a few minutes ago, and that was, so you have FTEs equivalent to how many?
We have FTEs equivalent to, we are positioned to have FTEs equivalent to over 2,560 this year.
But you serve 4,800.
4,800 students.
And that's not in workforce development. Those are not people who come in here to take a dance class.
Right. That's not in
or
our
theater
continuing
program.
ed. That's not in our
Okay.
continuing ed program.
You also, we've talked in the past and I've talked with your predecessors over the years, there's really three components to how you make up the number for your campuses. You've got an Auburn campus, you've got a Fulton campus, you've got online.
Right.
What's the numbers at each of those, roughly?
Roughly. So the way that I look at it is, because we've been doing our own kind of research, if you will, and what we've found out is that a significant portion of our students who enroll in face-to-face or brick-and-mortar classes on either our Auburn and Fulton campus, they are also taking a portion of their courses online. So, you know, we can talk about it in the framework of we have, you know, a third of our students on, you know, at the Fulton campus, and a third of our students, and then we have this, you know, we have, this nearly 25% of our student body right now is in the high schools, 25%. So when we take the rest of that and we look at it, what we're really seeing is that many of our online students are also taking face-to-face classes. So nearly 900 of our
So this isn't like Phoenix or any of the,
No.
you can't get an online to your degree
You
here.
can. It just represents a smaller portion of our student
Okay.
of our student body, a real smaller
So
portion.
ranking again, sorry to rank again. So Auburn #1.
Auburn, credit hours wise, Auburn is #1. Online is very close, and Fulton comes in third. But our Fulton enrollment has been very consistent lately, and we are seeing some growth in that area, particularly in some of the unique programs we have with the high schools up there.
So a more global question, or I guess more Empire State question, how is enrollment for community colleges across the state?
Well, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen across the state community college enrollments beyond the decline. For us as an institution, this is the first year, and I believe 5 or 6 years, that our college enrollment is on pace to exceed the previous year. So
Okay.
we
That's
are
separate from the budgetary issue.
That's separate from the budgetary issue. That's just pure enrollment numbers comparing 16-17 to this year in 17-18. You know, what I'm hearing from my colleagues across the state is that there are many colleges that are flat or slightly down, with some that are up. And so for us to be in a position to be up this year, whether it ends up being 1% or 2%, I think is wonderful, because, you know, we always feel fortunate when a student, as I said earlier, when a student chooses to enroll at the institution, and so that we can help them achieve their goal. The more students we can, if we have an increase in new students coming into the college, if we can do our job to help retain them and support them, that can help us to stabilize our enrollment, so we don't go in such a sharp decline that the college has in the past.
So two questions are, I guess, offshoots of this. One is the conventional wisdom is that has always been used, or at least portrayed, not necessarily by you, but by your predecessors, has been, is the economy gets worse, community colleges enrollment increases. Right. Does that mean the economy here locally is bad?
No, I don't think so. I think when it comes to where we're seeing our growth, as I mentioned earlier, has been as a result of specific initiatives that we can then demonstrate has actually resulted in growth. I'll give you an example. Last year, we worked closely with City BOCES up in Oswego County. We had mutual interest to try to increase access to courses and support the districts. So within that, the idea came up that they wanted to offer exclusively online courses to high school students. Well, when we did that, we were able to create a pretty rich catalog for them, and the student enrollment followed. So because of that particular initiative and offering a number of courses, we anticipate this year to have, in essence, 60, I'll use the FTE model again, 60 FTE from that initiative. Well, that's significant for us, because 60 FTE is a difference for this year, potentially for us to be down in enrollment compared to where we were a year ago, to actually now being ahead of pace and potentially to be up in enrollment this year. So we can speak to that initiative because it correlates to the increase of number of students we're serving and ultimately the FTE we have in the high school area.
So you just said you're fortunate when students pick Cayuga. You've talked about, and I've heard you say this in the past, that you can go almost 20, 30 miles
Right.
to the east, the west, south, and you're at another community college, whether it's OCC, TC3, not advertising everybody, but FLCC, or up to Oswego State, what differentiates Cayuga from the others? Because you said that's the big issue of why they come here.
Yeah, I think for Cayuga, first of all, I think people come here because we have a great reputation. You know, students know we've made generational impacts now on families within our communities that have attended here, have reached successes, represent our alumni base extremely well, and then take that good fortune and that great, you know, kind of attitude, and that resonates within our community to saying this is a place not only to start but to potentially finish and to really can help get you where you go. I think Cayuga, we're very committed to helping students to be able to get individualized attention and support, to be able to make sure that when they identify their individual goal, we want to be able to help them. And you know, that's a promise many colleges make, and I can tell you I've worked at a number of them. We really live it here. And you know, to be able to work every day with a quality faculty and staff that I'm fortunate enough to do, I think really is something that, as I've mentioned before, it really energizes me, and I think positions us well for the future. But I also want to talk about the idea of college choice. And I've said this in other forums, and I think it's important to know, we certainly want people to feel that we are the best place for them as an institution to pursue higher education. But ultimately, it is a student choice. It is a prospective student choice. So we want to be positioning ourselves well for students who want to take advantage of what we offer. I think we do. But ultimately, if someone down the road or someone in this community feels as though that they might be best served by a four-year school right off the bat or another institution right off the bat, what's best for them is what's best. And we might have already been able to touch them while they were in high school. We'll be able to serve them in another way at another point in time. So from my perspective as an institution, we want to make sure we have a quality reputation, and we want to be able to make sure that within our community they know that we're responsive, we're here to support them, both on the industry side and the student side. And if we do our job well, people will want to come here and they'll benefit very well.
So somewhat shifting gears, the governor unveiled his Excelsior program back in the spring. I see you smile at that. First of all, for those who don't know what Excelsior is, can you really, in a thumbnail, explain that?
So the Excelsior Scholarship Program is I think, you know, in theory, a wonderful initiative that was designed to be able to, you know, support middle-class New Yorkers on providing access to more aid or scholarship, if you will, to help go tuition-free to a SUNY school. Or public institution in the state, and we're one. And so when the initiative came out and was rolled out, you know, looking at all the details, it was something that we knew that students in our community whose, you know, family net income is at this stage, I believe it's under $100,000, would be able to have access to additional aid opportunities if they so choose, to be able to go tuition free while they're here. So, any
idea how many took advantage of it for the fall?
This fall, we welcomed over 80 students who took advantage of it, and I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $130,000 or $135,000 in total aid dollars that came in. So, you know, what's great about this particular program is when you look at the other financial aid, federal aid, and New York State TAP that's applied, their last dollars in. So whatever the gap is between the kind of the long-standing aid programs.
So if somebody gets Pell and TAP, those are taken first, and the state's on the hook for those. Exactly. What is usually a smaller amount.
Exactly. So whatever that portion.
Any idea how many students took advantage of Excelsior statewide?
You know, I'm not familiar with that number. I know that it's you know, thousands of students, and I know that it was a significant dollar amount. And I think what we'll really see the impacts of the Excelsior program will be, you know, through this year's cycle in anticipation for fall 18, because this program, as you know, it was approved through the budget process in early April. Many students, particularly,
and there was only a small window. There
was a small window for application. So I really believe we're going to see what the real impacts will be of the particular program as we look ahead.
Do you expect bigger numbers for Cayuga in 18-19?
We do expect bigger numbers for Cayuga. Now that people will become more aware of it, now that people know that it's out there for students, we anticipate that we certainly get a number of questions about it, obviously, and we want our admissions staff and financial aid staff are informing people. But I believe people will be more comfortable and aware to be applying and considering it next year.
And community colleges, and if I'm wrong on this, correct me, community colleges have often been seen as feeders for state four-year colleges, whether it's SUNY New Paltz, Oswego. Is there a worry that because Excelsior will now give you a four-year ride, that they'll just skip the two-year route and go directly to these other schools?
I think we look at it two ways. One, we know that if a student starts with us and they continue through 4 years and they reach the benchmarks or the metrics that are there, they'll be able to carry it with them for 4 years no matter what. Okay. If a student is, lives relatively close to a four-year institution and they can, get into that institution, academically, at the same time they're considering Cayuga Community College or another institution, what I believe it'll do is it'll give a student a choice to say, perhaps if I'm a commuter either way, do I want to look at this institution as a
because it doesn't cover room and board.
It doesn't cover room and board or other fees. So I think when a student looks at that to make their choice with their family or supporters, they'll be looking at it potentially that if I'm going to commute either way, perhaps they are on an equal footing to make the right choice for them. Is it a possibility? Absolutely. But like I said before, when it comes to our reputation, our ability to prepare students, we feel very confident in that. And to your point about being a feeder school for SUNY schools or others, over 60% of our graduates annually transfer to four-year schools and seamlessly. And we know from our data they do very well when they do.
So just one quick question, because it kind of pops up. So if a student takes advantage of the Cayuga Advantage or the P-TECH program, are they eliminated from consideration because they have gotten, there's been a question about whether if you've taken some college classes, can you qualify for Excelsior?
Yeah, the key for that is if you've taken the college classes before graduation of high school.
Okay.
So that's the indicator. So as long as you've taken college courses before graduating from high school, then it's
only after. Okay. After, yeah. So you had a pretty good 2016, 2017 budget year. How'd you end up?
Well, so it all starts again with enrollment, the way we're funded. You mentioned it earlier, the three ways. From the position of setting an enrollment target, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, to meeting and exceeding that, also with a number of other kind of internal controls. We're in a position to add, nearly $1.5 million to our fund balance when it comes to this year.
So there have been years where the news has always been bad about Cayuga before you got here, and you had a tough year before that, or when you came in, where you've either run in deficits or you've had to make cuts, and there have been layoffs. So how did you turn it around? That's question A, and then I'll give you B. Let's do one at a time.
Well, so 2+ years ago when I arrived here, I was confident that we could work as a team to be able to understand historically kind of the trend data, if you will, and I won't go into the metrics of it, even though you know well that I can. When you look at the trend data,
you love this stuff.
I do love it. When you look at the trend data to say, really at this point in time, once you get to about November 1st, we're able to use pretty accurate prediction of where we should end up for that year from an enrollment perspective, which then will drive the financial modeling. And for the last 2 years, we've been able to do it successfully within about 1.5% from November 1st through the end of the year. So 2 years ago, if you will, when I first arrived, we were in a position where we knew we weren't going to hit our budgeted number of FTE. We worked together as a community. We made cuts internally. We held some vacancies, a number of other initiatives, and we ended up with a positive flow where we actually were able to contribute to our fund balance more than we anticipated to a year ago. Similarly, when it came to a year ago, we knew we were going to reach our enrollment mark. So we were able to kind of, make the decisions we needed to work through the year. We had some natural savings occur, and it resulted in us being able to add $1.5 million to our fund balance. Now, we only have one fund balance, and we have an institution with a long, long vision ahead. So
where does that money go?
Well, it goes into a reserve for us, just like any other.
Because you've drained down reserves, and not you, but the college has drained down reserves in the past.
Yeah. So Middle States came in, our creditors came in, 2 years ago, and we were in a position that said they encouraged us, required us to get to 10% of your overall budget in fund balance. And in the last 2 years, we were able to nearly triple our fund balance, and we will be over 10% of our fund balance within the last 2 years, which I believe is a testament really to our community, and certainly we work together to get there because we want to be in a position as we go forward to be able to have the proper reserves we need, but ultimately to be able to make the investments we need to to be responsive to our community and meet ultimately our student needs.
So I know they've been giving me the signal. We only have 3 more minutes. But we're going to extend it to 5 because you've had 2 agreements that we need to talk about, and it is your college. So I'm sure the
I appreciate the time.
Telecom department will be fine letting the president have more time. You recently signed an agreement with Wells College with President Gibraltar. What was that for?
Oh, it's a tremendous agreement and an opportunity. So a number of years ago, our college foundation established a presidential scholarship program, which was an opportunity for regional students who graduate in top 20% of their class to be able to get a tuition scholarship, similar to the Excelsior Scholarship if they attended here. We've been able to broaden that kind of program to say any of those students that come here, regardless of whether or not they get money based on need or based on allowance or so forth, those students are called our presidential scholars. And now moving forward, based on this agreement, our presidential scholars who reach the threshold that's required and graduate from us will be positioned to get a presidential scholarship to Wells College if they choose to go. What a great example of the 2 higher ed institutions in Cayuga County to work together to provide a local pathway for high quality education with a great financial assistance available.
So that could cover a student who's a presidential scholar not having to pay tuition at either institution and getting a 4-year, 2 degrees, a 2 and a 4-year. How does this help Wells?
I believe it helps Wells in a number of ways. Number one, we know that they have a great reputation in students in this community who may have an interest in Wells, and this financial incentive could be in place to help make it attractive for them and support them. So I think from a Wells College perspective, their president, Gibraltar, has been tremendous. Their leadership has been tremendous in saying, we want to be able to also serve our local community, and this is a great way to do it.
So how much is a year to go to Cayuga?
It's
roughly
about $4,500.
But this will be a $26,000 up to a $26,000 per year benefit if you go to Wells for those following two years. The other agreement, and this is what we'll finish up with, and we won't get to housing, but you just signed 2 deals with the City of Auburn. One was for women's softball. What are you doing?
So our women's softball, we've had a women's softball program for years and years, and have been fortunate to have partners in the community to house those teams to play games and compete. Recently reached an agreement with the City of Auburn to be able to have Casey Park as a home for our women's softball team starting in the spring. It's exciting for us.
2018.
2018.
How many students will that be?
We're hopeful to have a team that will serve over 12 students. They're still in the process of recruiting and finalizing that roster as it goes to spring, but it's a great opportunity for us to partner with the city to take advantage of great local facilities to be able to serve our students well.
Where did they play before?
They played at Port Byron before. Again, they've been tremendous supporters of us and allowed our teams to compete there, and very grateful for that. And this will give us a little bit of opportunity a little bit closer to the college.
The other big news out of the City of Auburn has been this agreement on men's baseball for Falcon Park. What are you doing there?
This is twofold. Number one, we've made the announcement this fall. We are adding men's baseball to our intercollegiate athletic offerings effective in the 18-19 year. And so we made that announcement, and what helped make that happen was working with the great leadership in the City of Auburn to be able to utilize Falcon Park as the home for our baseball team. We've reached agreement with them that when we bring our baseball team in line, that Falcon Park will be the home of Cayuga Community College baseball, and just great
spring of 2019.
Spring of 2019, we'll be able to host games right here in Auburn at Falcon Park. And what a great opportunity for our student athletes to be able to play in a professional stadium.
How does that help you recruit?
Well, I believe anytime that you can bring a prospective student athlete here to consider us as a place to play baseball, and we can show them what a beautiful facility we have right here that supports a professional baseball team, it's going to be a tremendous asset, and it would not have happened without the great leadership in the City of Auburn.
So you had meetings with John Rossi, the former corporation counsel, Jeff Dygert, the city manager, and Michael Quill, the mayor.
Yes.
Does that mean you're not building fields?
No, this is be able to make sure that we can continue to serve our current generation of student athletes. Athletic fields and athletic programs in general, for me, are our key program that we need for our future, and we will be looking to kind of identify sites and possibilities and hopefully roll out a new vision for that here in the spring semester.
So let's use that as a teaser for having you back in the early spring to talk about not only what your thoughts are on housing, turf, but also how do you utilize, because you are utilizing Holland Stadium right now.
Absolutely. Holland Stadium's been a great asset for us.
All right. We want to thank President Brian DURANT for joining us over the last half hour or more to give us a college update, and we will have him back again in the spring to cover all the issues we didn't. We spent an enormous amount of time on enrollment, but that's your bread and butter.
That's right.
And it's the bread and butter for this college. We'll be back next week with both Inside Government and Beyond the Front Page shows. On Inside Government, we're going to have Senator Pam Helming in. This is her first visit back to the studio since she won her election last year. And on Beyond the Front Page, we'll have a discussion with Ed O'Nori and Jenny Haynes, among others, about the Shines Theater. In 2 weeks, Auburn's Superintendent of Schools Jeff Perizzola and Business Manager Lisa Green will be in to give us a talk about, or give us an update about the fight for financial aid, specifically foundation aid. And we'll wrap up that day with a discussion with City Manager Jeff Dygert, who'll give us a city update. And then we'll end the season with our normal visit from Santa. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know, you are not Santa, by the way. We should make that clear.
I appreciate that.
We will let you go. We do want to let you know that you can send your ideas for questions or guests to cozguitho@aol.com or Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good night and have a great tomorrow.